It just changes the way that you come back home in your life. And sometimes it shakes you up so much that nothing feels right when you go back home and you're like, gosh, the people that I'm hanging out with that aren't really cheering me on, and the job that I have that just sucking the soul out of me and not giving me this actual life of living.
Welcome to the Wipeout Weekly, the daily podcast for beginners, wannabe surfers, and seasoned wipeout enthusiasts. No hype, no filler, just the highs, lows, and honest truth about learning to surf and finding your place in surf culture. I'm your host, Suze Wilson. Let's go out. I actually wanted to call this episode Surfing with Oprah, but how did this even come about? How did you end up working with Oprah?
That was through Kinergy, which is a dance fitness company that I worked for, created by Julianne Hough. And right before the pandemic, we got invited to go on her wellness tour. And so we opened the second act with 10-minute version of our workout. And yeah, we got to do a little mini tour of the country right before everything shut down due to the pandemic.
Wow, that's incredible. And you are a trained dancer because that's what you did for years before you became a surfer, and then you started running all the surf retreats.
Yeah, so I've been a professional dancer since I was 18. So gosh, over 20 years ago. And, I think just that connection to my body and to performing. And I think when I look back on it now, I think what really appealed to me about being a professional dancer was the ability to travel and kind of live a spontaneous lifestyle where every day was different. And, when I look back at it now, that wasn't necessarily what I was meant to be doing, but it was the stepping stone that led me to what I am doing now.
So what came first? Was it surfing or dancing?
They both were introduced to me around the same time of life. I started dancing and doing gymnastics when I was maybe 7. But it was just kind of a hobby. I wasn't in a studio. I didn't do it competitively. And then my family, my mom's side is from Hawaii. And so we were on a family vacation to Oahu, where my grandparents were born and raised. And my grandpa found an old beach boy friend and had a surf school. And I got my first lesson at 12 years old. I rode a big 10-foot board and got up on waves and loved it. But it didn't, when you get the surfing bug and that's it, that it didn't bite me then, because I didn't really start surfing consistently until I was about 30.
And where did you surf when you started doing it consistently?
At that time, I was living in LA. And so me and my best friend, we decided that we were going to become surfers. It was just a decision we made. And we didn't know anything about surfing. We lived probably the closest to Venice. We were at the time in, Studio City, so in the Valley. But we had a friend that lived in Huntington Beach, and that's where I kind of grew up in that area. So we would drive at 4:30 in the morning, an hour and a half to the beach, Tuesdays and Thursdays. We didn't know how to read a surf report. We just went Tuesdays and Thursdays. We'd show at the beach at around 6 a.m. We would surf for an hour or two, no matter what. And then we would get home at 10 a.m. and start our day.
What did the lineup feel like then? Was it friendly or competitive? How did you find it?
So we would surf not a really good spot. And so it was always typically a handful of us, of friends. It was me and 4 or 5 dudes that would paddle out. And it wasn't very crowded. So I didn't get that intensity of the lineup until we started to surf Malibu First Point. And that was a whole different ballgame.
How did that feel?
That was really intimidating. I would sometimes go out there and I would just sit out in the lineup the whole time and not get any waves, and then just kind of paddle in sad until I started to build up confidence. And, you would wait for somebody to fall off the wave, and then you would just get in there when you could. And slowly it would get like one wave. Okay, I got two waves. And then we would just have full on sessions there where we would get as many waves as we wanted some days. But you just started to know the crowd. You knew who not to drop in on. You knew like who would let you party wave.
You're in Australia right now, but where do you usually surf?
Yeah, so I live right now in North County, San Diego. So I'm in Encinitas. And typically I surf anywhere from Beacons Beach to Cardiff Reef. There's like so many breaks in between that area. So me and my buddy will usually kind of do the little surf check in the morning and figure out what the best spot is, where maybe it's not too crowded, and yeah, pick something based on that.
You've been surfing now for quite a while. So what level of experience do you think you have? Do you think you're an advanced surfer?
I feel like I'm a perpetual intermediate surfer. Like, I don't think I will ever be advanced. And I think that's just that mindset of always wanting to get better. I do feel like proficient in the water under like a lot of different conditions where I know my limits and can feel like I can take care of myself. But yeah, there's still so much that I have to learn that I definitely am not advanced.
What would you say that you still have to learn after all these years?
I think, I still feel like I can get so much better at nose riding, at like smooth cutbacks. I think it's more of the like technique of things. Even, when I longboard mostly, but when I'm on a shortboard, sometimes like duck diving proficiently and getting exhausted and having better paddle strength and surfing more gnarly waves. Like when it's, I don't mind bigger waves, but low tide, like lower tides when it's reefy still scares me. So I haven't been in very many, only one barrel which I didn't make out of because I don't like surfing when the wave's like hollow.
So what's the biggest wave you've ever surfed? Do you know?
I mean, I've got some pictures of me with like a wave that looks twice my size, which isn't that big because I'm only 5'1". So, but like a solid like 8-foot wave probably.
Wow, I'm like half a foot. That's basically my limit at the moment. So yeah, I'm in awe. What can I say?
Yeah, it's not ideal. I like a good like 3 to 4 is fun. I don't like to necessarily have that adrenaline and fear of death every time I'm paddling out. I just kind of want to play and have a moment to be in nature.
You've traveled, I guess, all around the world, right? So what are your favorite places to surf?
It's so funny because I have traveled all over the world, but there's something about like home now in San Diego that just, I'm always like, sometimes I'll travel across the world and you're like, gosh, the waves are better at home today. But I've always had really good times when I'm in Indonesia. I've always found really fun waves there, and I've gotten to spend a good amount of time there because I used to live in Bali. So I've had my fair share of fun waves there, and then I've been to Mexico and Central America a lot for waves, and that tends to be fun. It's just always nice to be in warm water and not have to put a wetsuit on.
I know. Somebody said that it's like a different sport. Basically, surfing in your bikini or in the spring suit, and then surfing in a wetsuit, and I can totally understand that.
Yeah, right? It's like a whole nother game when you have to just like try to squeeze yourself into that and out of it.
So apart from not making out of that barrel, what's like the worst thing that happened to you in the surf, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, there was a time, this was maybe about 5-ish years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago now. Gosh, what is time? That I had this terrible habit of when the wave was starting to close out, I was jumping off of the board in front of the board. Like, so not back, but I was like jumping forward to like get out of it, like pressing eject button, but going forward. And I did that for like a 6-month period. I don't know what happened. So one time I was doing that, I was in LA, I was at Little Doom. And it was kind of shallow, and the wave was closing out. I was on my longboard. I was leashless, And I did that weird jump in the front. So then the wave picked up the board, and then the board underwater fin hit me right in the back of the head. And I heard it like donk, and just like that fin just sliced right into the back of my head. And, there was other people in the water, and it hurt, but it wasn't like I wasn't in pain. I didn't get knocked out. I basically just swam over to a person, and they were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I don't think so." And then I just like went up to this guy, and he like moved my hair, and there was like blood, and he looked. He's like, "Yeah, you got a slice in your head. You should probably paddle in. Do you need help?" And he helped me in, and that my best friend was there. He saw that I was getting out of the water. He came out. It was quite a few steps up back to the street, and at the top of the beach, there was a medic, and he looked at it and said, "You should get stitches." And so it was like the most bougie surf injury, because I'm at Little Doom, which you need to have a key to that neighborhood. So you got to know somebody that has a lot of money to have a house in that community. And then my buddy drove to the nearest like urgent care that was open, and we ended up going to like this private practice in Beverly Hills, and they cleaned me up and put a couple stitches in. So I was like, of all the places that I've surfed, this was like the most first world problem surf injury.
How long did it take you to get back in the water after this?
Oh, right away. I went back right away. And then I was in Mexico. I was surfing like K38, and I did the same thing. I bailed, jumped forward, but the lesson I learned was that I covered my head. And so the fin hit my fingernail and like kind of bashed my nail, but at least I didn't have to get stitches. And then that was the last time I did that. And I don't know, something switched, and I finally figured out to kick out of the wave or to bail backwards into the wave. You just don't ever want to jump forward, because then that's when you're in the way of the board is between you and the ocean, and that's just a dangerous spot.
Great. This is going to be my lesson learned, not to do that.
Yeah, don't do it.
Right. We're here to talk about surf retreats because you are a surf retreat expert. And I would like to know what the hell a surf retreat is, because I have no clue.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of variances in surf retreats that are out there. There's so many out there these days. But just speaking on my behalf of, as a retreat host, of what I want to bring to the table of surf retreats is that there's this element of, whether you want to call it spirituality or self-growth, and community that is involved along with the surfing. So it's not just this, I'm going to be the best surfer possible in the shortest amount of time, and all we're going to do is surf. Like with the retreat, there's also, to me, this balance. The ocean is where I feel the most connected to the divine. And so being able to share different tools and techniques and practices that just help you to commune with Mother Nature and Mama Ocean in a way that just feels really, spiritually aligned. So everything kind of integrates into surfing, but there's also, yoga practices, meditation, sound baths, breath work, sacred circle, where we're, connecting. You're learning how to hold space. You're learning how to keep yourself calm in the midst of potentially fear in the water, and just really bringing in that holistic side of surfing to the table. You're eating really well, really beautiful, clean, seasonal foods. And because of that, the community, the people that sign up are on that same wavelength. And it always lends itself to the best of friends and long-lasting surf buddies.
That sounds great. Well, you mentioned all the spirituality elements here. And I know that you effectively, I want to say, graduated from being a dancer to being is this a correct word? A yogini? Is that a word?
That's a word. Yeah.
How did that happen?
Sure. Because of dance, and I was always hyper-focused on my physical body. and taking care of that, I spent no time taking care of my mental body. And at some point in time, I just was not very happy, even though I felt like I should have been. And I was seeking so much validation outside of myself, from men, from casting directors, from jobs that I was booking or not booking. And that was kind of the beginning breadcrumb that started leading me towards meditation and energy work and what my connection was with God and what I believed in, and asking kind of deeper questions and doing some of that work that requires one to be still and to sit. And that was really hard for me. In yoga, we call that tapas. Like whatever your tapas is, it's that sense of self-discipline that purifies you to transform. And so for me, it wasn't movement. It wasn't doing like physical, intense work. It was using my breath to connect to more stillness, to really remember who I am. And yeah, that journey led me to Bali, where I did all my yoga trainings. And from there, it's just kind of continued to be a huge part of my life.
One of the things that I did hear about surf retreats is that surf camps, they're like happening constantly. It's more, there is a surf camp in a very specific place, and it's usually all year round. And surf retreats, they just sort of happen seasonally or periodically, and you just organize one, and it's got a sort of focus, a specific focus for that retreat.
Surf camps happen, quite often. They're pumping them out a lot. So I don't think there's as much intention behind the holistic side of growth with the people that are going. And it's very singular focused on getting people standing up. And I think that's stoke of surfing. You typically will have a coach. So a lot of times there's a little bit more of that hand holding in the water, which is sometimes really, really helpful. Mm-hmm. And with a retreat, there's going to be, a little bit more of that intentionality, a little bit more of a group of people, depending on the retreat you're going to, that have similar values, similar mindset about surfing and the ocean, and they're usually tailored into the day, are more wellness experiences where you're having meditation and sound baths and your yoga practices and the food that is, tailored in. And maybe you're also doing cold plunges and activities and getting into the community and volunteering. And so it just kind of depends on what type of retreat you're doing. But that's been my experience and what I like to offer on my retreats.
Do you think surf retreats are better for people who already have a little bit of surfing experience? Or could beginners still go on surfing retreats? Because it seems to me that you kind of need to have that connection to the ocean and understand what you want to get out of it, rather than like, oh, I just want to stand up on the board and I want to surf in a tropical spot.
Yeah, I think it depends. There's some retreats that require you to be able to paddle in for your own waves. The retreat that I'm hosting everyone will have a surf coach. And so beginners can come. And I think what it's really more geared towards is being able to have somebody that's not just looking to get better at surfing, but get better at life as a whole, and is ready to just have a week of being unplugged from the day-to-day reality and stresses, and just tap into themselves through the art of surfing and through all of the other activities that are integrated that help, I find, you become just a better version of yourself.
How does it work out logistically? So let's say I sign up for a surf retreat. I fulfill whatever the initial requirements are. So let's say I know how to paddle out by myself. What happens then? Does this include all the flights? Do I have to organize it myself? What is it like step by step? How does it work?
So I think that's what's so beautiful about a surf retreat is that there's not much that you have to plan. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that kind of averts people from going to surf new places, because it feels really scary and really daunting to figure it all out yourself. So when you sign up for a retreat, it's all laid out for you. You book your flight, and we'll tell you where to fly into and what time of the day to arrive to safely get to where we're going. But then pretty much everything else is taken care of. There'll be transport picking you up from the airport, taking you where you need to go. And each day is planned out. So you have your accommodations, you have your meals that are being prepared for you, you have your surf coaches there, you have your wellness experts, and anything else that is needed is just all on site. And if you want to, rent a scooter or go do the waterfall hike or, the other things like that can be sometimes added on, sometimes it's included. I know for like my retreat, we include like horseback riding and cold plunge and a waterfall hike along with all of the wellness experiences and the daily surfing and video analysis. So each retreat will be unique, and you just want to make sure that it covers the things that you want covered. And then some of the stuff gets to be like a la carte. Maybe you have to buy your surf pictures and afterwards, or your videos that might not always be included. Typically, you want to bring your own surf gear as far as like what swimmers you want to wear, what rash guards you want to wear, if you need wetsuits at all. And then if you have your own equipment, it's nice to travel with a board, but a lot, if you don't, then that's what's really nice too, is you don't have to. And the retreat camp or the surf camp or whatever it is will have all of the different boards that you would need for that wave and wax and leashes and fins and all of that stuff. So I think as a beginner, I wouldn't worry about bringing your own surf equipment. But once you start to get to a place where you know your board and have gotten comfortable with it, I think it is really important to travel with your own board. It just makes a big difference that I've found when you go to this like amazing wave and then you're spending half of your trip trying to figure out this new board that you're on. It just is so nice to have your own board there if you can bring.
What does a typical day at a surf retreat look like?
So a typical day at a surf retreat is going to be a nice bright and early morning. You'll get used to going to bed quite early so that you have the energy and ease to wake up early, to have a surf, to do maybe a little ritual to honor the ocean before we get in, maybe a little stretch. And if the waves aren't on, then maybe we do our yoga practice first. And then after the surf and yoga, we'll come and have a big, beautiful, healthy breakfast that is made for you, locally sourced fruits and veg. And then having some downtime, maybe it's a nap in a hammock or just a relaxation on the beach or in the pool. And then a lot of times we'll do video analysis. So we'll get together, watch the clips from the morning. And then depending on the day, that might be another surf. It might be a somatic energy movement practice. It might be horseback riding. It might be a sound bath. And then we'll have dinner. And then potentially, if we're doing any other activities, that might be there. But a lot of times we're just pretty spent after, 2 surfs a day and all of the enjoyment of whatever, skate lesson or a cold plunge or waterfall hike or, learning with the different tools that I will be sharing with pranayama and energy work and things like that. And then we go to bed and do it all over again.
Is there one or maybe 2 things that people do not realize about surf retreats?
I think people underestimate the value of them because it's really easy, I know even for myself, to say, oh, I could just do that same trip alone or with a buddy or something for half the cost or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And so then, you can make that happen. But there's just something special when you do invest in a retreat like that, because from what I've taken away is it's not just let's just froth out and surf as many waves as possible and then go home exhausted and sunburnt and salty. And sometimes that's what you need. But I think right now in the world we live in, with just so much unrest and so much need for validation and productivity and accomplishment and goal setting, if we go to the like surf camp mentality, you stay living in that. And what I want to show people that in the retreat style, that you can be unrushed and that you can be on your own timeline of learning, that it's not meant to be linear, that you can have space in your day to do nothing, and that you can connect with people that are supporting you and cheering for you and wanting you to be the best version of yourself and to do well. And you feel the same about them. And it just changes the way that you come back home in your life. And sometimes it shakes you up so much that nothing feels right when you go back home and you're like, gosh, the people that I'm hanging out with that aren't really cheering me on, and the job that I have that just sucking the soul out of me and not giving me this actual life of living, you start to begin to make choices that are shaping a life that you truly want to be creating, rather than stuck in this like hamster wheel spin of what you think you should be doing because that's what everybody else is doing. So I feel like people underestimate the power of a week away and really being able to tune into what's possible.
So basically what you're saying is that if somebody doesn't want the life totally shook up, they should not go on the surf retreat.
Yeah, I mean, yes, right? Like, the warning is that if you are not fully content and happy with your life, like this might be what propels you into making some of those big changes that lead to something more than you we're really betting on.
It should definitely come with a warning. That's for sure.
Yeah. If you know, it does require that, and emotions become unlocked when you're in these spaces and you can be vulnerable. And, you know, big thing that I like to teach people is to learn how to be vulnerable and learn how to hold space for other people's vulnerability, which just makes us better friends and better partners and better colleagues when somebody can be their true self and you're not judging them and you're just holding that for them and you can just see them fully, and that's it, just witnessing them. You don't need to be solving anyone else's problems. You're not going to people to have them solve what you're going through. It's just, hey, hold space for me. Let me clear stuff. Let me feel things. And then we can move forward now more deeply connected because we have experienced that, and you just up your level of respect and connection with someone.
So perhaps it's not a warning label, but it's a promise that you, after a surf retreat, you're going to end up a better surfer and a better human.
Yeah. And that's why you end up being such good friends with these people that you're with for a week that feel closer to you than some of your family members or friends for 20 years, because they're seeing the most true side of you. And you're also showing up how you want to be showing up right now in your life without the preconceived judgments of how you used to be. And so then, you know, you're just become, really, really close with these like deep experiences that you're having with the other people on the retreat. And I know for me, like I still connect with people I've retreated with and go travel with them and call each other when we're in each other's towns and have a surf and have a meal and meet each other's people. And I feel like I have friends all over the world because of surf retreats.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. So if somebody wanted to go on your surf retreat, are they still spaces?
Yeah, we still got some spots, and it's a very small group. It's only 8 people, which is really nice for a surf retreat. And that's happening June 8th through the 14th, 2025 in the Osa Peninsula of Costa Rica. So it's kind of tucked away. We're not disclosing the exact location so we don't blow up the location. But, you know, obviously you'll know it when you sign up, and we'll get you there safely. And it's a co-ed retreat. It's called Sacred Soul Surf Retreat, to be able to really weave in the spiritual aspects of surfing with the athleticism that comes with it and the growth in the water and outside of it.
What's the best way for anybody who's interested to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can head to my website, nikkinie.com, Nikkii.com, or give me a follow on Instagram, which is at Nikki, Nikki_NIE_, and shoot me a DM. I'll get back to you. I'll probably leave you a little voice note and just kind of see where you're at. We can always have a chat and just make sure that things feel in alignment. And we're running that through Rise Up. So the booking pages are on my website, which will lead you to the Rise Up Surf Camp's website. And we've teamed up to host this really unique, beautiful experience.
Nikki, thank you so much. It was amazing talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Suze.
And that's all for today. Check out the Wipeout Weekly for our free newsletter, more stories and ways to connect with us. Thanks for listening. See you tomorrow for more of the Wipeout Weekly.